2001 and 2002 and 2003 riots, I think,
Okay.
in Gujarat.
Okay.
Was that because people still like held a grudge for each other from the independence and
I
partition?
think the Indian, after independence, this is about 50 years or much later, right? After independence, this started out with a different type of incident. Something happened in railroad car. Okay. This is the way the train of events go. Railroad car, and it was set on fire. You don't know who sets it on fire and what happened. Okay. Immediately there is a reaction. And they said, no, the Islamics set it on fire. A lot of Hindus died there. So what happens when such things, when things are wrong? They go and the Hindus started taking revenge on the Islamics. They went to the Islamic neighborhood and killed a bunch of people. Okay.
So
And
did
this
it
is
have
what-
did it have to do with
it's got nothing to do with anything else except one incident. Okay, that's about it. Right.
Okay.
You take his question.
Ruksheen.
No.
Wait, she's been waving at me, and I told her I would answer her
Yeah,
question
yeah,
before.
go ahead and-
Repeat your question,
Yeah, she's going to take the question.
and you can take
So,
Go ahead.
going back to Jinnah, judging from what I've heard about him, did he really care about the safety of the Muslims, or did he just want to stay in power?
Wow.
it. Good question. Great question.
He was concerned, his original concern was the safety of the Muslims. He said the majority Hindus might somehow try to affect the Muslim independence. Muslims way of living and their religion and all those kind of things. That is the motivating force for him to say that we needed to have a separate country for ourselves. But what was the second
The
part?
power. But power, there was
Yeah.
power and influence for him.
But if power was obviously there, he wanted, but I think he basically wanted a separate country because he didn't want the Hindus to dominate over the Muslims. And he said they should have a separate place to live and live their kind of life and to practice their religion.
This is another.
Oh, Julian,
Um,
we'll come back.
why did General Putin? Why did he not? Whatever his name is.
Which one? Which guy? Dyer?
Dyer.
Is that-
Yeah, Dyer.
Okay.
Why did General Dyer bring in so many military troops and bring in a car and bring in the rifles, but he couldn't get the tank in? So. But why did he decide to fire at
At the people who were peaceably. There had been apparently an arrest of two different people of the freedom movement at that time, that day as well. It was also Baisakhi, which was a religious holiday. It's a New Year actually
The
for
Tamil
that.
New Year.
It's a New Year
Tamil
time.
New
So they had all come together to pray or to be together. They weren't, but they were also there to peaceably protest the fact these two people had been taken. I think he assumed there might be something more going on there than really was. And I think he wanted to make a point, it sounded like, from what I've read in the history. I mean, I obviously wasn't there. I did visit Jallianwala Bagh. Shivitz has been there when he was a little kid. When he was about 2, we went there. And so I think that he got into a point where he needed to make a point. He wanted to say, look, we're going to try and control you. And even by force, we're going to try and control you.
And why did in this one particular, like in the clip of the film, people started going down this well called the death well.
Yeah.
Did many people?
We saw that.
Did people actually got out of the well?
You know what? I don't know. That was a question Shivitz actually had when we had the conversation with him too, with whether you see them jumping into the well, right? And I think that they just thought they were trying to get away. Most people didn't. I mean, the hope was that would have been the hope that you could try and be there as long as you could to try and get out. But it would have been very difficult, I suspect. And I don't think a lot of people died. Most of the people died. I don't know. Yes.
Yeah.
What is the legacy of Gandhi today? How is Gandhi perceived by Indians generally?
There's a couple of things which I'm going to say in general. One, Gandhi was against partition, so that we are talking, still finishing partition, he was against partition. He didn't. There was a few others, like Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, who was a Muslim, was against partition. But there are people also in the same political group of National Congress said, hey, if they want them, give it to them now, because later on there might be a problem when we have. So these two things, that's one. Second, how is Gandhi perceived now? Gandhi is perceived in general as somebody who is for secular beings. That is, religion doesn't play a part. One of his famous things was, when is a guy a true believer of something? When he has no prejudice towards anybody. And this is a beautiful song again. I wish we could have played that song. But so Gandhi is perceived as still as father of the nation, in spite of now people tell me that they have a new government as of May 16th now. Narendra Modi has taken over. Before that, the other parties is from the old Congress. And somebody, there is a lot of political debate among people saying Congress should have been abolished as soon as the independence is over. So he wanted to do that. They wanted to abolish the political Congress. Indian National Congress to be abolished. It became very vested interest because Nehru, and then it has almost become a dynasty, as you see. Of course, in the US also we have similar thing. But we have to say Gandhi still, because of the way his tactics, when partition again and go back, a lot of people were killed. As he was saying, we used to get railroad cars full of not people who are alive. Okay? In other words, corpses came both sides. And he said, I'm going to go on 100th Street. We have to stop this nonsense. We cannot kill each other. So, we stopped this whole thing. Yes, ma'am.
You know, through history, maybe it was kind of with the start of Gandhi's ideas of simplifying and being more self-sufficient, sacrificing, fasting, and then the partition where people had to leave their land and homes, go somewhere else or take something from somebody else. How have just those attitudes affected Indians today? You know, are they used to sacrifice, or is it, you know, kind of the influence of Gandhi, or
Okay, so you know, I think you connect with them. Just to say it and then Mom chime in, because I think you have something to say about daily life.
Unfortunately, the last 10 years I'll take, just so that you will get a picture. We are becoming not nations, but full of multinational companies. So things have changed. Economy is much more the thing of the day. Even here, Wall Street and Main Street, same Indian Wall Street and Indian Main Street of that. Main Street affects, including the thing about in Gujarat with Modi. From what I hear, he talks to all the Muslim businessmen there, and they are all for him, they supported him for him. So I think economy and life of people have taken a different toll than from Gandhi's times, when we were fighting in some sense. And after partition, anybody know I was a basketball player once. So I had to play basketball in a tournament. So where did I have to go and play? In Lahore, which is right across the border from Amritsar in Punjab.
So very up north.
It was no different. I could talk that language, so often I could talk some Punjabi. So I could talk Punjabi. And they are not any different at that time. This is just during just about 5, 6, 7, 8 years after partition, let's assume. But now things have changed. Pakistan has got a different developmental things. Unfortunately, India and Pakistan have gone into arms race. Pakistan put so much into arms, maybe they kind of neglected education. There are lots of other political science problems I don't know too much about. I can only see what I see. So, in India, still there are people who love to have this idea of giving something of yourself so that the community is better. Still that idea is, very few houses you won't see without a picture of Gandhi. I can tell you. Don't ask me why. I think it is because what he stood for and the tactics he used, some of them good, some of them bad, you can disagree. When I was young, I disagreed with him. It so happens, I think I told in one of the clips, which I made for Srivatsa, that when his wife died, the British didn't give us a holiday. So we struck from our school and went to the girls' school and asked the girls to come out. They wouldn't come out. And we were lucky charged by, coming back to Adam's question, by the Malabar Special Police. They were from a different part. We had to face, we were beaten up. We had to run through the streets. You have seen this kind of a riot police taking after now in Thailand maybe. So these things happen, but we still like the idea and these ideals very much.
I think his ideas are interesting. I think it's been interestingly commercialized.
Sure.
In some ways, but I think that in good ways, actually. I think there's a movement afoot, like it is a green movement here, right? Like we are now looking back on maybe the older ways that we tried to do things, that we try to return to doing what we have and doing it better. I think that happens too. Gandhi, the whole Khadi movement is an interesting one that has gone through a lot of evolution. Khadi is that cloth, right? The cloth that everybody wove and they made their own clothes that my great-grandmother did. That's been taken by a number of people in the central government and made into being a very very fashionable, very cool thing to do, to be wearing your Khadi scarves and your Khadi things. And the nice thing, in some sense, is it does go back to those people who are still doing this work. When my dad, in one of the things that Srivatsa has been working on with taking some clips of my parents, he's wearing a Khadi shirt and he talks about it. I frequent that. Our towels and things like that I buy from the central government, and it helps the people who are still doing this. So the idea of simplifying and the ideal, it fits really well into where we are commercially right now. And I think that the other part is the simple life. I think people still reflect on that. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, Srivatsa will always think I'm being very funny, but I get choked up, and we'll be talking about Gandhi, and we'll be talking about where we come from. And to me, maybe because I'm getting old now, I get very emotional about the idea of where my parents come from and where Gandhi, the ideals of wanting to have your own rule and that I come from that is a really emotional thing for me. And I think that still holds true with a lot of people. We have a lot of people who worked in like the tech business, like my cousins, who've now gone back to working on endeavors through using their technology to access people in a different way. So I think it's still alive. It's just alive in a different form. Yes, ma'am.
In the movie, when Gandhi was assassinated, the guy who killed him, there was this man with a long beard, and he was with him. They never really explained who he was.
That gets back to what my dad was talking about. You want to? No, you go ahead. I mean, RSS. I mean, there was a group of people who were for national, what he was calling the RSS.
Protection of the nation.
Protection of the nation. And that group also felt like Gandhi had given away. And I'll tell you about this guy in a minute, had given away India in some sense, and he let it happen. That our father of our nation, who got us this freedom, gave away part of it, Pakistan, right? And so there was groups of people who were more extreme, just like in any movement, there's people who are sort of more mainstream, and you have some people who have take a drastic measure. And the gentleman with the beard was, I believe, the leader at that time of that group. And that's sort of to symbolize that there was sort of a greater force. It wasn't just that he acted alone, that he decided on his own to do that. That was a part of a movement.
You'd say more about, what do you mean give away? He was afraid to give away.
Well,
But he was against partition.
He was against partition, but it didn't matter. It was that he was blamed, like he was a
them,
person in power.
He gave them, equal status. It is essentially a bigoted group in that sense.
Okay.
He was a bigoted man more than the group being bigoted.
Okay.